years, I had been looking at pornography, voyeuring women, sexualizing them in situations. I had built up a lot of fantasies about grabbing a woman out of a convenience store, taking her somewhere secluded, and raping her. This was exciting to me. I kept going with that. I masturbated behind this fantasy continuously. It got to a point where I told myself I was either going to do this or I wasn't. I had even tried to commit suicide one time because I thought I was going insane. I finally gave up and said, well, I'm this way. And since I'm this way, I'm gonna get comfortable with it. I'm gonna do these acts. If I'd been in a store, I may have seen a grown woman, and I'd go home and think about her, raping her, grabbing her out of a store. To me, I could walk in a store. The most obvious thing for me to do and get away with it was just walk up, grab him, and walk off, and that's what I did in this crime. I walked right in the convenience store, stuck a gun in the woman's back, and walked right out. When I stuck the pistol in my victim's back, the adrenaline rush that I got out of that, I had done drugs before and drank alcohol. Nothing could compare with that rush that I got when I stuck that pistol in her back. It was like my whole world turned upside down. Everything went in slow motion for a few minutes. A lot of times I thought that I was a junkie on my own adrenaline. It may not have been adrenaline, it may have been other chemicals in my body. But I learned how to tap into those things by using my own fear, other people's fear, and a lot of it came with the deviant behavior. That's the only way I could tap into it. And I wanted that high. The high I got during that crime surprised me. When I stuck that pistol in her back, I almost passed out. The rush was so intense. And it scared me. Because I had already pulled a gun on this woman and stuck it in her back. And for me to pass out, it scared me. You know? I hadn't anticipated that. Not at all. I thought I would get a high, but not that like that. Killing my victim would have been the next high for me. The progress of my deviant behavior was high. I went from one to another. It was an adrenaline rush for me. I wanted that rush. I had to have it. That's what my thinking was. And the night I committed my crime, when I stuck that pistol in my victim's back, I got a rush like I'd never gotten before. After that, everything had went downhill for me. I was feeling worse about it. Sometimes I question if I would have continued. After that, I thought the rape may not be anything, you know. But I thought if I killed my victim, now that would be a real high.
I had 53 hands-on definite victims, and there are 42 other ones that can be questioned as far as age and so forth is concerned. I have 53 minor victims.
Did you molest Mikey?
Yes, I did. I molested Mikey on numerous occasions throughout a 3-year period, from the time beginning at 9 until he was 12 years old. I knew Michael before he began coming to the congregation where I attended. I worked many times with the people in his area with problem children. As an older teenager, I would go out and assist people in the boys' homes and so forth for little small things like baseball games, softball games, etc. And as a matter of fact, I chose him because he was, as a victim, because he was a problem child, because people neglected him and oftentimes pushed him aside, and I knew it would be easy for me to get close to him, to be his friend, if you will. And then, again, I also knew if he told, that there would be little or small amounts of belief in it. No one would believe him, basically, if he told. And in fact, they didn't. When he did tell, and when it became a bigger issue, when I was investigated, the head of the department of my county told me, he said, "You have nothing to worry about." He said, "We can tell from the very beginning that this is all a big scheme," and it was dropped almost as quickly as it came about. I was caught twice before I was incarcerated. Really, it wasn't being caught; it was I was told on twice before being incarcerated. They were not believed the first 2 times. I had many people, counselors, church leaders of the community, to come up and stand in my defense several times in those occasions, and it was simply just totally disbelieved. Even the second time, it was more stood out against than the first time, because they thought, well, here he goes again, this young man trying to help unfortunate children, and they're turning against him. And I was even told as much as say, I had a minister come to me and tell me, he said, "Patrick, what's going on is you'll run across it many times. People you try to help will stab you in the back." He said, "Roll with the punches, stick with it, you're doing a good job." He said, "And in the end, you'll be blessed for it." Kind and generous things for people. I would give families money that did not have any money, that was not from the church treasury, it was from my own personal bank accounts. I would support them in all the ways that I could, talk to them, encourage them. I would go to nursing homes, talk with the elderly, pray with the elderly. I would do community service projects, pick up litter off the side of the road. I would mow the lawns for elderly and handicapped people, go grocery shopping for them. I would do activities that were centered around the things that young people like to do, not the things that tend to happen in churches, which are boring and dull. It was actually very exciting for them, and they enjoyed it, and our youth group grew. It was definitely to cover up what I had been doing. It seemed the more I would get into my deviancy, the more I would try to do that was good in the eyes of everyone else. And indeed, in the eyes of everyone else, I was a good kid. I grew up making good grades in school, went to a nice college. All of that just added to the double life. I consider people that go to church gullible because they have a trust that comes from being Christians and other people. They tend to be better folks all around, and they seem to want to believe in the good that exists in all people. I consider people wanting to believe that these kind of things don't happen, that children shouldn't be molested, and that it doesn't happen. And it really doesn't happen in my community and in my church. And because of that, it was easy for me to convince them, all the more with my good deeds that I had done, with the actions that I had presented the members of the congregation. I think that they want to believe in people, and because of that, you can easily convince with or without convincing words. They said, "Well, we know this young man. He has been in our community all of his life. We know his parents, his grandparents, his aunts, his uncles. This is not something that he would do. This is not something that goes along with the behavior that we see him in and day out." And that was true, because I was very careful that they did not see that behavior day in and day out. Most of my deviant behavior happened at nighttime and behind the scenes, away and far from any important people who could make those kinds of judgments that, yes, indeed, Patrick is the kind of person who would go around molesting children.
He's been incarcerated twice for child molestation. The first incarceration was for raping an 8-year-old girl. He tore her vagina so severely, she had to be taken to the hospital.
How many victims do I have total? I believe it's 12.
Okay.
And I'd have to really sit down and think about that. Most of my victims are girlfriends, children.
Okay. Why did nothing come of it when the children told?
Well, like one of my victims, she was rather wild, and it's to have a victim like that, it's very easy to make liars out of them because they don't want to tell what they've been doing to start with. You know, it's kind of like if you tell on me, I tell on you.
Did you find people easy or hard to fool?
It depends on whether they care or not. You know, if people in general, they're going to think what they want to think, and that's just basically all there is to it. I mean, if they want to think bad of you, they're going to think bad of you. If they hear something bad of you and they kind of believe it, they're going to believe it, and if they don't, they don't. And something like that, it's hard to believe. In the business I was in, you know, this guy works around children all the time. If he was molesting children, you know, there's no way he couldn't get caught.
What was your business?
I was night manager of a grocery store. I was in the public a lot. I led a double life. I mean, the store was, I was an entirely different person. Maybe not so much an attitude of the way I acted, but I could honestly be me. You know, I could be a productive person, and a decent person in the community. It was a place where I could say I'm a decent person. You know, when I went home, I had to face this again. You know, I'm not a decent person. I'm an indecent person. I do immoral things. And it was like, you know, and you get at work. For me, if I got at work, you know, I loved to work. I loved to stay at work because I didn't have to go back home and face my real self. When I was first asked the question, when she first asked me the question if I did molest her, and it was like electricity run through my body. You know, it's like being really, I just really got nervous. But basically it was to get over the nervousness because that's the first telltale sign, you know, is being really nervous and perspiring and such as that. Quivers in my voice as is right now. It wouldn't be, you know, I would have worked through that already. It was basically, you know, if the guy really didn't care, it was kind of like an adult conversation, you know, like, you know, come on, guy, you know I'm not going to do anything like that. You know me, if I was talking to somebody I knew, and I would use my job, you know. Look, I've been around children all my life, you know. If I was going to molest a child, don't you think I'd pick a child outside my home and not have it in my home with me all the time? I don't fool people. It's a hard one. You know, I guess I don't really know how to fool them. Just stare them straight in the eye and just tell them, just answer their questions when they ask you. Basically, it's not to be nervous and to look someone in the eye. If you can get to grasp to look someone in the eye, because that's, you know, that's something that's driven in your head all your life. If somebody looks in your eye, you know, they're telling you the truth. So if you can stare someone in the eye and tell them a lie, they're going to say, well, you know, the guy didn't even blink, he didn't look away, he's pretty straight here. Plus, you know, he's pretty good in the community. He's worked at this store 12, 15 years, or he's worked at his business 12, 15 years, and, you know, basically if you can stay calm and look whoever it is in the eye, and especially if the mother of the victim or the victim there, if the victim is anywhere that you can look at her and make her nervous, or him, whichever one it might be, the more nervous that you make them, the more it makes it seem like they're lying. If they're around, you know, most of the time they're not. So just a simple look to a child is traumatizing. As you believe it or not, it really is, especially if the adult is molesting the child.
If this one had gone to court, do you believe you would have been convicted, or do you believe that a jury would have taken your word over the child's?
In my mind, I probably would think that I would have gotten away with it. Because I could sit there, and if she was in the courtroom, which sometimes they do, you know, they do bring them in sometimes, and sometimes they don't. And I know when we went to the hearing, she wouldn't even come in the courtroom. And when she did come in, when she looked at me, I just looked back at her, and I really didn't even give her any kind of insinuation with my look. You know, I just basically looked at her. And she went right back out of the courtroom. And if we had went to court on it, you know, if we had went to court and we both had been in the courtroom at the same time, then I could have made her nervous enough to make her lie, or make her stumble to make people think she was lying.